Want to start with Johnson's achievements in foreign affairs. This is something you don't think about too much because we're talking about Reconstruction. We're talking about building back part of the country. And as you can well imagine, in the United States right now, we have a lot going on, and we're thinking domestically. We're thinking about America and America only. But there are people right now in the halls of government, so to speak, that are actually working on things going on worldwide. There are people that right now, behind the scenes, I'm sure, are negotiating with other countries for different things and different trade deals and all of that stuff going on. Life doesn't stop just because we're focused on America. There is stuff going on in other parts of the world. And it was the same thing during this time. Johnson was focused on what was happening in the United States, especially in the South, with the Reconstruction. But at the same time, he was dealing with other stuff going on in the world. One thing that was happening in your book mentions it, 1864, Napoleon III. He was the Emperor of France. He had challenged the Monroe Doctrine. What he did is he set up an Austrian Archduke Maximilian as a puppet emperor in Mexico. And Lincoln had this going on while he was the president and while the Civil War was raging. But Lincoln was unable to deal with it because he had so much going on. He had so much on his plate he couldn't tackle it. So what Johnson does, Andrew Johnson, is he sends 50,000 troops to the Mexican border. And basically Mexico looks at it and thinks, hey, we're going to have a problem here with America if we don't withdraw these French troops. And so they withdrew the troops, and it worked out that way. Another thing that was big and important during this time, and is very important in our day, not so much at the time. In fact, he was made fun of. William Seward. He was the Secretary of State under Johnson, and he had an opportunity to purchase Alaska. Russia had it. It was a Russian territory, Alaska was. And they got tired of defending it militarily because the United States was growing in that direction. Great Britain also had some stake in that area. And Russia had just now fought the Crimean War, and they needed some money. Just like the Louisiana Purchase, Napoleon needed money for his war efforts and to fund his fights. So he sold us the Louisiana Territory, Louisiana Purchase. Well, Russia is doing that with Alaska. And Seward had actually negotiated before he had gotten really permission from anyone. He started negotiating with them. He thought it would be a good idea to buy it. He negotiated the price of $5 million. Congress passed it, and you got to remember this is a hostile Congress, a hostile Senate toward Johnson, but the Senate approved it 37-2. 37-2. So the vast majority, and not only that, but they approved $7 million. Seward had negotiated originally $5 million. They negotiated $7 million. Now, when you think in terms today, $7 million is not that much. Alaska was twice the size of Texas, twice the size at least. And it was an amazing purchase. But at the time, they call it Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox. They made fun of William Seward for this, and you'll see other nicknames that they have in your book concerning this. But when you think about it today, later on, they're going to have a gold rush there, the Klondike Gold Rush. They're going to have all kinds of natural resources. Think about all the oil we get out of Alaska now, all the gold we've gotten out of Alaska. This was a brilliant move. And nowadays, historians look at it as Seward was a man well before his time, and he did a great deed. So a couple of things there under foreign achievements, foreign affairs with President Andrew Johnson. And one of the things that happens to all presidents is their time runs out. And it was time for another election. Andrew Johnson had lost most of his influence, and the Republicans ended up choosing a guy by the name of Ulysses S. Grant. Hope to goodness you remember his name as a general for the Union Army in the War of Northern Aggression, or the War between the States, or the Civil War, or whatever you want to call it. And because of some black Northerners that were able to vote, they got Ulysses S. Grant through just barely. It was a squeaker of an election. And right away, one of the things they wanted to work on was the 15th Amendment. Remember, the 14th Amendment gave all men the rights of free citizens and gave them the rights of citizenship, except for voting. And the 15th Amendment kept states from denying any citizen to vote on the account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Notice that it doesn't say gender. That means that black men could vote, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, you could vote. But now gender was still a thing. They weren't ready to give women, for whatever reason, the right to vote. But the 14th Amendment gave that. Now, one thing they did not tackle during this was poll taxes and literacy tests and property ownership. And the reason they didn't do this, and what that means is a poll tax would be, I come up to vote, I'm a black male, and I say, I'm ready to cast my vote. And they say, well, you're going to have to pay $20, $10, $5, $50, $2, whatever. And if you don't have that, you don't get to vote. It was a tax. And they used it because a lot of the black Americans were poverty stricken. I mean, the war's just ended. They've been slaves. They haven't had time to accumulate a lot of money. And so therefore, they were unable to vote because they couldn't pay the poll tax. Property ownership. They might say, well, do you own property? You've got to be a landowner in order to vote. Another thing they would do is say, hey, here's a piece of paper. Read this off to me. And if you couldn't read, they wouldn't let you vote. It was a literacy test. Are you literate? Can you read? Or are you illiterate and you can't? And because of that, there were still a large number of blacks that could not vote. But they kept those restraints in there because they didn't want immigrants to vote at the time. And so the 15th Amendment goes through, it passes, and it gives blacks on the surface the right to vote. And the reason this was such a big issue to them was not because, hey, we want to help them out and we want them to vote. They realized, hey, Ulysses S. Grant, the only reason he won is because of about 500,000 of freed blacks that were able to vote. They were able to, in their areas up north, were able to vote. So they wanted this nationwide. It took effect 1870. The last Confederate states, Virginia, Mississippi, Texas, and Georgia, they ratified it and they were readmitted to the Union. So now the Union is all whole again. Your book talks a little bit about Ulysses S. Grant and the scandals going on. Now, I want you to keep in mind, Ulysses S. Grant, he was not a pillar of virtue. He was not the most moral guy in the world by any stretch of the imagination. But he wasn't involved in a lot of the corruption going on. Here's the problem that Grant had, is he would see corruption going on, or he would find out about it. And instead of punishing the people, he would just make the people resign. It could be on the state level, it could be on the local level, it could be on the federal level, but he would just make them resign. And instead of punishing it, he just let it slide. And whenever you do something like that, if I catch a student cheating on the test and I don't punish you, and I just say, well, you're going to have to retake the test, or you can't take this test. If there's no punishment involved, then what is the restraint to keep you from doing it again? What is the element that's going to keep you from thinking, well, I don't want to do that again. I don't think I'll cheat this time. So that was where Grant fell short. And you got to remember that as a leader, it is important. Leadership, part of it is dealing with the difficult stuff, the difficult decisions. And I think of that bulletin board in our classroom, or my classroom, that talks about leadership. And it has these pictures of President Trump doing different things that are leadership-oriented, things that leaders do. One of the things you have to tackle are difficult decisions. It would have been a difficult decision to punish folks, but Grant needed to do that in order to act as a deterrent for further scandals and further shenanigans going on. But there was a lot of greed. Greed caused most of it. Greed causes a lot of corruption. So that brings us to the end of the second phase, the radical